You've been lied to your whole life about love. They told you it's chemistry, compatibility, fate, or the whimsical flicker of Cupid's arrow. They sold you Hallmark cards, Disney endings, and Instagram fairy tales, delicate illusions crafted to keep you soft, distracted, and obedient. But love, real love, the kind that cuts to the bone and keeps you awake at night, has nothing to do with those fragile stories. Nietzsche once said that truth is ugly, and love is the ugliest truth of all. Because when someone falls in love with you, it isn't for the reasons you think. It's not because you're kind, not because you're attractive, not even because you're their type. Love is not admiration. Love is not liking. Love is a collision, a violent recognition of something terrifying and intoxicating in you. Freud would call it the return of the repressed, the eruption of forbidden desires they swore they'd never acknowledge. Jung would say it's the shadow, those parts of themselves they hide, deny, even loathe, suddenly alive in your eyes. And Sartre would spit out that every embrace is really a war against isolation, a desperate clawing against the prison of being alone. This is why love feels dangerous. Because it is. You're not chosen for your best qualities, you're chosen for something darker, something that bypasses reason and cuts straight to the subconscious. You trigger them, you unravel them, and deep inside they don't fall for who you are, they fall for what you awaken. But here's the haunting part. There are only two real reasons anyone ever falls in love with you. Only two. And once you hear them, you'll never see your own relationships or yourself the same way again. And no, I won't reveal them yet. Because first, you need to understand what love truly demands of you, and what it destroys. Think of the first time you were ever consumed by someone. Not the polite crush, not the teenage fantasy. I'm talking about the one that burned, that wrecked sleep, that made food tasteless, that hijacked your nervous system like a hostile invader. You thought it was beauty, you thought it was personality. But it wasn't. It was recognition. Your brain doesn't fall in love, it's enslaved by patterns buried in evolution and trauma. The neuroscientists map it in cold detail. Dopamine flooding like a narcotic, oxytocin chaining you to the other like shackles, the amygdala whispering danger and desire as the same signal. Love is not peaceful, it's chemical warfare dressed up as poetry. Schopenhauer saw through the lie. He said we don't fall in love for ourselves but for the will of the species. You aren't choosing them, they are chosen through you, a pawn in the game of reproduction and survival. That's why you ache when they leave, why jealousy feels like murder, why betrayal feels like death itself. It's not romance, it's biology weaponized against your fragile sense of self. But the philosophers go further. If biology binds, psychology digs the grave. Attachment theory shows that the way your parents held, or failed to hold, you becomes the script you project onto every lover. You aren't falling for them, you're falling into your oldest wounds. Freud called it repetition compulsion, destiny disguised as desire. That's why you're drawn again and again to the same kind of person, even when it destroys you. So when someone falls in love with you, it's not about your smile or your laugh or your charm, it's about what you activate in them. The dormant hunger, the unhealed scar, the primal survival script written in their marrow. You aren't a partner, you're an answer, a dangerous answer. And yet, beneath this machinery, beneath the hormones and archetypes lies the secret. Only two reasons, two terrifying truths. And one of them is already whispering in your life, whether you see it or not. Imagine this. You walk into a room, and without saying a word, someone locks onto you. Their pupils widen, their breath shifts, their entire nervous system betrays them. Why? You didn't do anything. You didn't charm. You didn't seduce. You simply existed, and that existence detonated something inside them they thought was buried forever. This is where Jung's shadow drips through the cracks. Every human being wears a mask, a persona polished for survival, polite, moral, acceptable, but behind it festers the forbidden. The violence they suppress, the lust they deny, the ambitions they fear will damn them. Most of the time it stays chained in the basement of the psyche, until someone walks in who embodies it. That someone might be you. You may look like innocence, but you ignite their sin. You may appear disciplined, but you reek of chaos. You are the externalization of their repressed inner world. That's why the attraction feels magnetic, inevitable, like gravity itself. It isn't rational, it's archetypal. You are the mirror they didn't ask for but cannot look away from. And here's the cruelty. The more they deny it, the deeper they fall. Love at first sight? It's not love. It's recognition of the shadow, instant and terrifying. They don't just want you, they want what you unleash inside them. You're not a person, you're a key to the prison they themselves constructed. Nietzsche would laugh here. He'd call it the eternal return of the forbidden, the cycle that no morality, no religion, no social order can extinguish. Because what you call falling in love is often just falling into yourself, the part of you tried to kill, rising again in another's body. This is the first hint, the first edge of the blade. When people fall in love with you, it isn't because you're perfect, it's because you are dangerous. You awaken their shadow. But that's only half the truth, because the second reason is darker still. Picture the silence of your own existence. Strip away the noise of work, friends, distractions. What do you hear? The hollow echo of being alone inside your own skull. Sartre called it the nausea of existence, the unbearable weight of realizing that no one can ever truly crawl inside your consciousness. You are locked in solitary confinement, and love is the only jailbreak. This is why people fall. Not because you're beautiful, not because you're clever, because you pierce the isolation. In a single look, in a touch, in a laugh that vibrates in the same frequency as their own despair, you make them feel, just for a moment, that the unbearable prison of selfhood has a door. Schopenhauer saw this as tragedy. He believed connection is an illusion, that we suffer alone, and love is just the will tricking us into continuing the cycle. But the human soul rebels. Esther Perel says desire is born not of comfort, but of tension, the tightrope between closeness and distance, recognition and mystery. What does this mean? It means when someone falls in love with you, they aren't falling for who you are. They are falling for the possibility that you can annihilate their isolation. And here's the paradox. They don't want your perfection. They crave your rawness, your scars, the cracks in your mask, because it's authenticity, not beauty, that convinces them they are not utterly alone. Love doesn't bloom in glossy perfection. It erupts in the recognition of another flawed creature willing to share the abyss. Think of it this way. When they look at you and something inside whispers, "I am not alone," that's the spark. That's the dangerous lie that becomes the beautiful chain. Now you see the outline of the truth. 2 reasons. 1, you are their shadow. 2, you shatter their isolation. But we're not finished, because the real horror is what happens when these forces turn against you. Here's the cruelty of love. What seduces them will also destroy them. The very reasons they fall for you become the reasons they later resent you, because shadows don't stay in the dark forever. And the annihilation of isolation, once intoxicating, becomes suffocating when it reveals its price. Freud said every desire carries within it the seed of its own punishment. You awaken their forbidden self, yes, but sooner or later they'll recoil. They'll project their shame onto you, blame you for what you made them feel. They'll say you changed them, corrupted them, when all you did was reflect back the monster they'd buried. Love curdles into accusation. And the second reason? That moment when you freed them from existential solitude, it doesn't last. The human soul is greedy. What was once salvation becomes dependency, then resentment. Sartre's inversion returns. Hell is other people. The one who shattered their isolation becomes the one who reminds them they can never escape it completely. You become both cure and cage. This is why so many loves collapse into ashes, because no one tells you that to be loved is also to be hated, that intimacy is the art of mutual crucifixion. We do not love lightly, we love with knives in our hands. But here's the twist. If you endure this cycle, if you let them face the horror of their own shadow, if you survive the suffocation of their dependency, you become something far rarer than a lover. You become a mirror that doesn't shatter, a presence that cannot be erased. And that is when love transforms from mere desire into obsession, devotion, even worship. So the question isn't why they fall, it's whether you can bear the weight of what falling means. Because once they've seen their shadow in you, once they've touched freedom in your gaze, they cannot unsee it. And the deeper question still, when you fall, are you strong enough to face the same reflection? Let's strip this bare. Love is not gentle. Love is a collision of pathologies, a pact written in blood between 2 psyches. Modern psychology tries to sanitize it. Attachment styles, compatibility quizzes, communication workshops. But underneath the therapy speak, the truth remains savage. We love because we are haunted, and the other becomes our exorcist. Think of it in terms of power. Foucault taught us that every relationship is a power struggle disguised as intimacy. When someone falls in love with you, they hand you a weapon, the power to validate their existence or to annihilate it. That's why your absence feels like death, why silence from you cuts deeper than any insult. It's not affection, it's dependence. Jordan Peterson warns that desire is always tied to chaos, and he's right. Because to love someone is to invite the chaos of your own unconscious into the light. You stop being a free individual the moment you hand them that mirror. That's why people say love makes them crazy, because it literally does. Neuroimaging shows obsession circuits lighting up like cocaine binges. Love is not stability, it's sanctioned madness. And yet, we crave it, even when it wrecks us. Because the alternative is worse. To live without it is to remain sealed in solitary confinement, untouched, unmirrored, unawakened. Better to suffer the madness of love than the slow suffocation of loneliness. That is the paradox. We beg for the very thing that destroys us and call it salvation. Now you're beginning to see why there are only two reasons. Reason one, they fall because you are their shadow. Reason two, they fall because you shatter their isolation. But knowing this is not liberation, it's a curse. Because once you understand, you can never fall blindly again. And here's the haunting part. If you accept this curse, you will see every lover differently. Not as a partner, but as a battlefield. Here's the secret no one dares speak. When they fall in love with you, it isn't you they're loving. It's the confrontation with themselves. You are the stage, the mirror, the battlefield, but the war is entirely within their own psyche. And if you mistake their worship for your worth, you will be destroyed right alongside them. Jung warned that the shadow, once projected, must eventually be integrated. But most people don't integrate. They collapse. They either idolize you, making you the vessel of their forbidden longings, or they demonize you when the illusion cracks. That's why lovers oscillate between obsession and hatred. You are never just you. You are their unconscious, made flesh. And Sartre's vision is even crueler. The moment someone falls in love, they also try to possess. They want to own the one who liberated them from their isolation. But possession is impossible. You remain free, opaque, unknowable, and this drives them mad. They don't want you. They want to consume the impossible essence that lives beyond their grasp. That is why jealousy burns so viciously, why betrayal feels like mutilation. They're not losing you. They're losing their one chance at escaping themselves. Love, then, is a tragedy written in advance. Two broken creatures clinging to each other like lifeboats, knowing they are also dragging one another under. And yet, the more impossible it is, the more intoxicating it becomes. As Schopenhauer wrote, love is a delusion nature uses to keep the species alive, but to the individuals caught in it, it feels like destiny. So when they fall for you, remember, they are not choosing you. They are choosing what you represent, the forbidden self and the end of their loneliness. And that's why it feels divine, unstoppable, terrifying. But here's the twist. Once you know this, you have a choice. Will you play the role blindly, or will you wield it like a weapon? Let's drop the mask completely. The two reasons, they aren't theories, they aren't metaphors. They are the only two primal engines of love, pulsing beneath every poem, every promise, every wedding vow. And if you can stomach it, here they are in their raw form. First, they fall in love with you because you embody their unspoken shadow. You are the living incarnation of what they repress. The forbidden hunger, the rage, the lust, the ambition, the savagery they choke down in daylight. You are the ghost of their Eid, walking outside their skin. When they look at you, they are staring into the mirror of their own damnation, and yet it feels like liberation. Second, they fall in love with you because you shatter their existential isolation. In a universe where every consciousness is a locked room, you are the breach in the wall. You convince them for a fleeting instant that the prison of self can be escaped. Your presence whispers the one lie every soul aches to believe. You are not alone. That's it. No third reason. No exceptions. Strip away the rituals, the stories, the romantic decorations, and every I love you boils down to these two truths. You are either their shadow or you are their salvation. Most often, you are both. And the beauty, the horror, is this. Once they see you that way, they can never unsee you. You become unforgettable, irreplaceable, a scar in their psyche. You don't just walk out of their life, you haunt it. That's why people carry torches for decades, why old flames still burn in memory like open wounds. But this knowledge cuts two ways. If you embody their shadow, you will be blamed for awakening it. If you shatter their isolation, you will be punished for not sustaining the illusion forever. To be loved is to be crucified, and yet there is one final revelation. One more truth that explains why, knowing all this, we still leap into the fire willingly. Here is the final merciless truth. We fall into love not because it saves us, but because it annihilates us. To love is to surrender your carefully constructed identity, to let someone else's shadow invade your bloodstream, to allow another's existence to fracture your prison of solitude. That surrender is terrifying, humiliating, and yet we crave it more than life itself. Why? Because existence without love is unbearable. Nietzsche said we have art so that we don't die of the truth. But love is the most dangerous art of all because it doesn't protect us from the truth. It drags us naked into it. Love doesn't give meaning to life. It exposes the void, then dares us to face it together. That is why it feels holy. That is why it feels cursed. Freud's ide whispers, Jung's shadow stalks, Sartre's isolation suffocates, Schopenhauer's will torments, and love crashes through them all, a brutal revolt against despair. You are not loved for being good. You are loved because you awaken the forbidden. You are loved because you make another human believe, for one fragile instant, that the abyss has a bridge. And here's the final shock. You don't escape this law. When you fall in love, you're doing the same. You're not loving them. You're loving the mirror they hold to your shadow, the crack they blast in your loneliness. Every heartbeat you surrender is a confession that you are broken, that you need another to survive your own existence. So remember this. There are only two reasons why people fall in love with you. One, you embody the darkness they repress. Two, you shatter the cage of their isolation. Everything else is decoration, illusion, story, and yet we still fall. Because to deny love is to remain untouched, unawakened, unseen. Better to bleed in the fire than rot in the silence. That is love's final cruelty. That is love's final gift.